Alrighty, hello mortals. How are you guys doing? Mistresses Behind the Myth is all. So today's topic is, of course, going to be about Batset, the goddess of cats of Egypt. Hey, Alyssa.
Hi, how are you?
Great. I was just introducing our topic. Of course, it's about Bastet, the goddess, of ancient Egypt. And today we're going to present to you guys the topic on the importance of cats in ancient Egypt. Love this topic.
Oh yes, she is. I gotta say, I went into this thinking that she was gonna be. I've never been that interested in her when I was little. I kind of just thought she was like weird cat lady number one. But
Me
she's
too.
actually kind of awesome. Like she's really cool.
Yeah, me too. I heard like very little things about her, which makes sense because like she barely has in this episode you will see that a lot of these things are speculations because there is very little information about this goddess, this woman who's supposedly to be like this overall like with a head of a cat and a body of a female who's supposed to be this powerful, all around woman who's just badass. And of course very little information on her personal life as well. But
yeah, I also find it very interesting. Like, even searching through, probably if I had looked hard, if I look harder, I could probably find some. But most of the stories, this is the one goddess where most of the stories that we get, they're not, made up cautionary tales for people like, hey, don't disrespect a goddess because she'll do this to you. They're actual historical stories. Like these actually happened in real life. It's not something. So I find that very interesting too. Her amount of reach is crazy in Egypt, man.
Yes, not only Egypt, but if you guys go back through history, you can see that this woman's cult, like this goddess's cult, her cult of worshippers has spread not only in the Mediterranean, but also to a lot of parts in Europe. Like her temples were massive. But of course, we're going to get to that later. So we're going to go ahead and open with the opening statement as usual. So go ahead, Alyssa.
All right. So in the simplest terms that I can put for you mortals, so the Egyptians were cat people. Let us explain. For all of the dog people out there and Anubis and subsequently me, you might be a bit upset, but for my cat people out there, get ready to relate like your cousin and meet gawk, ooh, stare for the legendary cat lady herself, Egypt's protector of kings, and sometimes the avenger herself, Bastet. So we're going to start with her origin story.
Yay.
I mean, Egypt is usually so clean and nice and put together. Yes. It's like a flowing story, but her origin story, one of the messiest I've seen yet.
Yes. I mean, it's still very clear cut to me, to be honest, maybe because we spend too much time in ancient Greek. But yeah, I still feel like this is one of those stories that it's clear cut, but at the same time, it has drama. It actually shows like the god doing something that's kind of messy. And I kind of like that. I do like that. I like drama.
Yeah, I personally love that. Maybe, and after we get the origin story, because you're going to find out that there are Bastet is in herself amazing, but there are two very different and amazing sides to her that we are going to discuss. Maybe that should be our polling question for the day. Which one we'll see at the end of this, probably which one they like better. But yeah, let's get started with the basic story and then kind of tell them the history and why probably certain things happened.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and just start out with the origin story. So the origin story of Bastet. All of you guys must know a few things that are almost symbolistic to ancient Egypt. Of course, of course, the pharaohs and the mummies and the hieroglyphics. But one of the most important symbol that you guys probably see a lot of times, but you guys might not know what it looks like, you can actually refer to the poster that I just put in the chat right here. And you can see that next to the statue of the cat, the black cat, there is a symbol of an eye. And that is called the Eye of Ra. And it is really important. It is the base of all of this story. And how does it relate to Bastet? Here we go. So,
and that's for multiple reasons. I just want to touch on the Eye of Ra real quick, because the Eye of Ra is important for multiple reasons. Of course, Ra being the sun god and the sun being, kind of important for us to live is very
Yeah.
is a
Yes.
is a pretty big topic. But also, Eye of Ra can mean one of two things. Eye of Ra means the actual Eye of Ra, as we're going to find out. Um, I want to go back to when we said important appendages were lost on both sides in the Isis and Osiris story.
Oh.
Ra is going to give us a little bit more of that, a little bit more of our appendages being torn out. But
I
the eye
mean, the eye. I mean, you can live without an eye. You can't live without a heart, or
that's kind of painful though. His whole eye, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I just wanted to explain that the Eye of Ra can also mean two things. Eye of Ra can be the actual Eye of Ra, which you'll see in a lot of different Egyptian gods and goddesses that we're going to put on here. You're going to see a lot of them walk around
Yeah.
with it as a symbolism. Like I said, it represents the sun, very important, but it also
Yes.
represents an elite sort of, you can think of them as like the Mission Impossible elite spies for Ra. They are bodyguards number one, his right
Wow.
hand men,
Yes, you will
if you would
find
call
out
it.
why. You will find out why when she means that this is his goal, his everything, like bodyguards, like it's everything.
Yeah,
So,
most of the goddesses and gods you'll find. Actually, funny enough, I even after researching, I found that most of the circle that made up his elite squad, Ra's whole little elite squad, were actually goddesses. There were a lot of goddesses in there,
oh
and
yeah,
they all kind of had the. And if you guys are wondering, because somebody might have actually heard me say protector and be like, wait a minute, wasn't that Isis's stick? That was both. That was a lot of their sticks because, like I said, they had a whole little. They were basically Ra's bodyguards, his elite team, and so they were all tech. And because he was a pharaoh, because like we said, in Egypt, they believed the gods had a direct connection. They were the
yes.
ones ruling the people. That
Well, we
translates to, them protecting the pharaoh, them protecting the king. So they
yeah.
were the
Well, we're
protectors
gonna
of the
explore
king.
that like
Yeah.
very quickly. We're gonna explore that very quickly. Like definitely, it's like the origin to everything. So yeah, you were right. Actually, the Egyptians, like the pharaohs were like the direct descendants of gods. But here's the thing about Egyptian gods: they are gods, but they are sort of mortal as well. As in, they can like they have human qualities. Like they can age and they can definitely die.
So
And
they got that
so
vampire immortality, guys. They got the lady
yes,
immortality. I am alive so long as nothing kills me.
exactly. You just get very crinkly eventually. So, Ra, he's like the sun god. He's like the almighty god of Egypt because I mean the sun is important. We need the sun, so he's very much needed. So the people of Egypt worship him greatly. But over the century, he gets a little older. He starts to become not so
Senile.
good. Yeah, he's not very good at his job anymore. And the human suffers quite a bit because he kind of forgets to do his job sometimes. Forget to have the sun rise for a few days can kill quite a few people. Stuff like that. And so people are starting to doubt Ra. They are starting to be like, oh, he might not be as good as he's said to be or he used to be if you know him for a long time. So of course he's the king of God, so he's like, I don't take advice or criticism from anybody. I'm doing a great job. So when people start stop worshiping him, Ra lost a lot of his godly power and he got mad. So he went to his father Nun, the oldest god of ancient Egypt, for revenge.
Primordial, guys, like primordial Egypt.
Yes. Like he's like I believe he's like the god of the water abyss. Basically it's like space.
He's
But
chaos. He's chaos. We touched on this. I can take that part if you want. We touched
go
on
ahead.
this in the Isis and Osiris story, if you guys remember. We talked about him being born, Amun Ra being born of the Ben, which is basically like a gigantic pyramid in like the center of space. But we also talked about it during our pop culture hour, where we basically said that in Christianity, because this is similar in Christianity, so you can see where they kind of overlap. You'll find in biblical stories that you'll have something called the firmament, which is supposed to be this gigantic. The Christians describe it as like a gigantic ocean separating like the earth and the sky or space, or the earth and the heavens. So the Egyptians have something like that as well. Actually, it's exactly like that. So when he goes to Nun, the oldest god and his father, it is literally he is literally a vast primordial space of chaos. It's a firmament. It's
Looks so
separating the
cool.
heavens and the earth.
It looks so cool, to be honest. Like the way people illustrate it, it's so cool.
Right? I wish I had a picture. Oh my goodness. Like if you guys get a chance, you should definitely look up Nun.
Yeah.
People have some very interesting takes on
Yeah,
it.
like Nun is known as like the oldest god of ancient Egypt. He's like the start of everything. Himself, of course, he has a lot of wise wisdom. So what Nun told Ra, like, what he told his son is that you should sit on your throne and just take out your eye. And he did. Ra literally went back and sat on his throne and took out his own eye.
Literally said, "Oh, okay, that's all I need to do. Let me just pop that sucker
Literally,
out."
like literally, physically took out an eye, and the eye turns into this terrifying lion goddess, also known as the goddess of war and the destroyer of the enemies of the sun god Ra. She basically knocks anyone out of the path who's against Ra. Like she's like just, oh, I'm the destroyer. I'm gonna go in, avenge me some people, and I'm gonna get out. Like
it's literally the destroyer of worlds. She was a warrior goddess to be feared. Had this down to a system.
Yes,
absolutely.
Like so, Ra named her Sekhmet and sent her to do his dirty work for him. Basically, like avenge me, child. And basically, she did that. She's like the very first assassin that's known to humanity. So,
quick fact
go ahead.
Sekhmet, because I find this hilarious. And can I kind of take over the story from here, just this part, because it's actually very interesting. Quick fact about Sekhmet: she was also known. Sekhmet herself was known as the her epithet, and we talked about this in when we were in Greece earlier. Her epithet was supposedly the epithet, for those of you who have not watched our Grecian podcast yet, is basically a nickname for the god. It's basically seen as a nickname supposed to embody really what they are. Funny enough, for her being a warrior goddess and a goddess of vengeance, her nickname was the Mistress of Jubilance.
Oh, I like that. Like that.
Yeah, it's a very funny name. I find it very hilarious and actually kind of funny that she was named the Mistress of Jubilance, and yet she was also called the Destroyer of Worlds, the Bringer of Death. Even her weapons that she used.
Oh yeah, her weapons are amazing.
Yeah, they call them the seven. There's another name for them, but I can't think of it now. But they called them, I know they were the 7 arrows of death.
Yes.
Yeah, everything from disease to war tactics till she had it. When I tell you this woman was not to be played with, it is unbelievably. And her nickname, her epithet of Mistress of Jubilance, actually comes from her bloodlust, which is actually how we're going to carry this story along.
Oh, yes. Basically, we're going to pick up on that, but I love that, Alyssa. I love that note. I love it so much. Was it Sekhmet start? Yeah, so Sekhmet is just that all around ferocious person. I think they should have made her after a crocodile instead of a lion, to be honest. But
that's Sobek, though. They actually have a god that's after a crocodile. But yeah.
I mean, I think that she possessed that. I really do. But of course, Sekhmet starts ripping up humanity because Ra sent her to do it. It was chaos. So Ra's other godly children, like, Osiris and Isis and, all the other god that's supposed to be on his side, they're like, Dad, can you kind of stop her, like, the new sister from murdering so much people? We're kind of underpopulated at this point. So
yeah, we're losing worshipers. Like, guys, this isn't even a battle. This isn't a war. This is a massacre. This woman is genociding entire kingdoms. Like, it's in the text. She was literally taking out entire kingdoms, from the lower kingdom in Egypt to the middle kingdom. She was literally ripping her way through humanity.
Yes,
hence the word world destroyer.
I guess it kind of happened like this. Like, are you gonna worship Ra? No, bang, you're gone. Like, basically, that's done.
See, that was how it started, but every plan is perfect until it's actually implemented. Until you add people. So she.
I mean, wait, there weren't even people. There were gods, for God's sake.
Honestly, no, there were actual civilians because remember he had done the whole tears thing. So there were actual,
Oh
she was
yeah,
slaughtering humans. Now,
yeah,
like I
yeah.
said, if it was a god, it probably would have been, there would have been a little bit of a fight. This was a massacre. She was literally just taking out humans left and right. That's why all the
Yeah.
other gods came to him and were like, his posse kind of was just like, okay, we stand by you in a lot of things. You're getting old, you're getting cranky, we understand. But yeah, that's not the way because it
Yeah, you
got to
need
the
to
point where
dial it down. Like, please.
yeah, her bloodlust was so great. Like I said, she was literally nicknamed the Mistress of Jubilance after the bloodlust.
I actually
Her,
kind of like that. I actually love that name a lot, really. I like that. I like how it sounds.
right? It's got a good ring to it.
Yeah, I love it. Well,
But
of course, of course, this character, she is designed to kind of look. Designed to have that ferociousness of a lion, and of course, you know, lion in Africa. You encounter one, you're pretty much dead meat because they're kind of hungry. There's not that much thing in the savannah back then.
yeah, that's actually why she has the lion. I know you mentioned she probably should have been a crocodile, considering we know Egypt for crocs and gharial. I don't even think gharials are over there, but I know crocs are like a huge deal in Egypt. But and even Mena was like telling us, earlier, people
Oh
actually
yeah,
domesticate them. But to Egyptians, lions were they were absolute menace to society. They were absolutely terrifying. And so
yes,
their idea, and like, I mean, Egyptians are most of the time we give Native Americans credit for this. We say they were very connected to the land, but Egypt, I think, is another one of those places that we should mention more because there are a lot of animals involved with their gods and goddesses. And I want to touch on that because they are extremely, like, they truly do believe in the elements and the animals that surround
yes,
them. They really truly do see the drawbacks, the
yes,
benefits. They really do take it all in, and you can see that in their stories. Stories tell a lot about a culture and a society, and it's one of the reasons why even when we lose different languages and we get, we have colonization and all of that, the stories and the culture is the most
yes,
important thing. You take that away in a war, you've basically destroyed the people because it lives on and it tells you
yes,
so much about it. Like, so them having her as a lion was a big deal. Lions were not to be played with. Lions were seen as, like we said, genociders. They could take out entire kingdoms. That was a symbol of power, ferocity, pride, and just absolute terror. And that is what Sekhmet was supposed to be.
yes, definitely. Like, I mean, I love the concept because Africa has some of the best species in the world, beside human, of course. Um, they have some of the best species. They have some of the best wildlife in the world, and they embrace it. Of course, some of them they embrace it with fear. You don't cross paths with with a croc or with a lion, but it's still something. It's something to be talked about. It's something that people should know. And of course, we got to go back. We're about to be done with origin, and then we can move on to her worshipping, and then we're going to have popular culture hour with Alyssa as usual. So we're going to move to the following action. So of course, people like all of his godly children came and be like, Dad, you need to knock this off, it's getting too much.
And it was
So
because she was actually killing. She was supposed to be killing. And
yes,
sorry, I know I said I'd let you continue. She was supposed to be killing to avenge Ra, but at some point, guys, she wasn't even killing to avenge Ra. She was literally just killing for the fun of it. She was having
yes,
a blast. And like I said, it's one thing when you're taking out the people he tells you to do, like a hitman. It's another thing when you want to become the lion version of Hitler. And oh my,
oh
that was such a bad joke, but that's kind of a lot of people.
no, literally, she literally just she turned from like a hitman to like a sadistic murderer. Like it was just bad. So of course, I mean, Rob feels kind of bad at this point. So he's like, he came to Sekhmet and was like, can you kind of dial it back a little bit? So just a little bit. But she's like laughing in his face and calls him a baby, and then it's like,
Exactly.
no,
Like, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were such a pansy about it. Like, do you want
yeah,
the
like
job done or not?
exactly. Like you told me to do this in first place. You can't take it back. So she continues to rip humans apart, by the way. And at this point, Rod's like, oh shoot. And then he kind of realizes this is all his fault. Or maybe just a little bit of it.
It
And
was
then
at
he is
that moment he knew he messed up.
yes. Yes, I love that. And so he assembled the remaining humans, the one that are still not torn apart yet, and gods, to put an end to Segment terrifying murdering streak. So what they did was they made this potion that has like a large amount of booze in it, and then some human blood mixed into it. I don't know what's that about, but eventually
It's about the fact that she, like I said, her bloodlust was really great. Like it was
oh
almost to it was literally insanity to a certain point. Like even
oh
she was
that
aware
makes
of it.
sense.
So
That
they
makes
mixed
sense.
yeah, the idea was to kind of tame her. She's too dangerous, like I said, and that should tell you about how powerful she was. The gods themselves were afraid to take her on.
Yeah.
Even them being the elite group in the Eye of Ra didn't want to touch her. That's why they went to Ra in the first place. So the idea was to get her drunk enough to kind of sedate her. Like even for bees, you use smoke. Like I think it's similar to cigarette smoke, but you use smoke. So for Sekhmet, she's half, humanish, goddish kind of thing. And,
Oh,
even
okay.
even then other religions, they drink a lot. So the idea was to sedate her, but they lured her. They dropped the blood, human blood inside of it to lure her because the bloodlust was that
Oh,
strong.
that makes so much sense. Okay, now that makes more sense. Because I was kind of confused by that. So they put out like a bunch of booze with mixed with human blood. They kind of set like a trap, like a honey trap, and so they lure her there. And so Segment was like, "Ooh, this smells yummy. I'm going to drink all of it." And she did drink all of it and fell asleep. While she was asleep, Ra performed his godly magic and pulled some of her godly essence out of like Segment's body. He basically pulled like two whole new goddess out of her. One was, of course, according to some sources, they say that one of the goddess that got pulled out of Segment, like literally, he pulled like a whole spirit out of her, was Bastet, the goddess of protection, cats, love, motherhood, fertility, home, and domesticity. Did I say
Yeah,
that right?
domesticity. Yeah.
Domesticity. Okay. I have problem with words. And the other person was Hathor, right?
Well, in some versions, and this guys is where it gets really tricky. In
Yes.
some versions, okay, I'm gonna give you guys the story versions, and then I'm going to explain the
Wait, wait,
cultural
wait,
version,
wait,
what
wait.
happened in real life.
Wait. Is it going to be going into her life? Because if it is, we can save it for next week.
No, it's not going into her life.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, this is just a quick explanation. So story wise, like Julie said, they pulled out her essence, and from her sprung Hathor. In some legends, it's just Bastet that comes out of her as an essence, and Bastet, like I said, is the chiller parts of her, and she kind of just calms down. So I mean, now she only does what she's told. Like she avenges it, but it's not to the point of insanity. She'll just, if you're on the hit list, she'll take you out, but she's not going full on let me torture humanity for fun anymore. But in some cases, Hathor, instead of Bastet, it's actually Hathor who Rog turns to and tells her, these human beings are being very disrespectful to me, fix the problem. And Hathor transforms into Sekhmet, and she goes insane because Hathor is in herself the goddess of love, and love in itself is a whole nother piece of insanity. If you've ever watched Lifetime, combine insanity with uh, infatuation kind of with love, you've seen how crazy that can get. So
Basically, teenage
Hathor,
nonsense.
yeah, Hathor going pretty much, and Hathor going from being, the goddess of love and a very strong emotion mixing with fury and terror and all of that, it basically drives her insane. And so what they end up having to do is pretty much the same thing. It's always usually the same with the booze, the wine, and the blood, and they kind of they either rip them apart or she transforms back. But either way, out of all of this, Bastet is born. Now, if
Exactly.
yeah, pretty much.
Exactly.
Somehow in there, Bastet is always born or either related. Sometimes she's just a sister to Sekhmet, but that's only the story versions. In the real world, what happened was, here's the thing: lions are great. They're ferocity. We love them. We can admire them. But I don't even know how they're taming crocs because, like I said, our interview last time told us
They
that
don't
they were
tame them. They don't tame them. They just catch them and put them in one big place. You don't domesticate crocs. There's no way. You just raise them in a very protected place with a lot of servants. Rich people nonsense, basically.
pretty much. I mean, at this point, but like, but either way, it kind of was a bad look for lions. Lions are something, like I said, that were not to be played with. They inspired terror. They were not kind creatures. If they saw you, it was on sight, and that's period. So it was very off-putting to the Egyptians to kind of have her as a goddess of something really, really good, or something that was supposed to be, protecting them, if all the lions did was eat them. She takes what she wants. But at this point, like I said, it was kind of just not a good look to have something that eats you protecting you if it kind of doesn't do that. And at the time, and we'll get into this when we continue on with her worship and the way she was worshipped, but over time, basically what happened is that house cats were introduced, and we're going to talk about their importance later, but they became so important that it was like, okay, we could still have the cat symbol. And cats are, if any of you have a cat, or any of you is a cat person, I can't personally understand it, but you know what, you do you, boo. If any of you is a cat person, you understand that cats all on their own are a different type of fierce.
Oh yeah, Minna has a cat. Actually, Minna and her family combined has like 10 cats. Well, but Minna has one.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, she told me the other week, but we're going to talk about that later, okay? So, basically, I'm going to repeat this again. So, Bastet is the goddess of protection, cats, love, motherhood, fertility, home, and domesticity. And we're going to pick, and in some version, you're going to see a lot more than that, because these Egyptian gods, they do a lot of stuff. They are the protector of a lot of things, which is good. And
they're putting in the work.
Yes, they do. They do a lot of stuff for humans. So yeah, we're going to speak more of that when we get to the worshiping section. So conclude this whole thing. So basically, when Bastet was born, she was pulled out of this Sekhmet goddess. Sekhmet did mellow out, basically because of her most of her essence taken away and distributed to the other goddess. She is still the goddess of war, but she only fight for people's protection now. So yay! So, of course, we are going to move right now to the worshiping part of Bastet, because this gal has a lot of temples for a while. They're all destroyed now, which is a very big tragic.
I am so sad. Like, I'm really angry at Egypt for letting that happen, because her temples were like supposed to be like, it's known. They're known for their opulence. They're supposed to be absolutely gorgeous. So like unbelievably meticulously put together. They're like, I would have loved to see them.
Yes, it was a really big tragic, to be honest, but a lot of people, not only Egyptians, but a lot of people from different nations, different countries, different kingdoms, love this goddess. They would travel to the lower region of Egypt just to pay respect to her. And like literally, Bastet, since the second dynasty in Egypt, she was worshipped in the lower. Worship in the lower region. So the main place of worship for Bastet was in Lower Egypt, while Sekhmet was primarily worship in Upper Egypt. So they're two different region, not religion. Pardon me. But so yeah, basically she was very, very famous in the Lower Egypt. And Egyptians traditionally associate Bastet as the she of the north, and then Sekhmet is the she of the south. Basically, they are two different queens in two different places. Yay. Sometimes Bastet was called the Lady of the East, or the Protectress of the Eastern Delta, while Sekhmet was called the Lady of the West, Protectress of the Western Delta. So they have these two queens, these two goddesses in two separate regions, and they literally are like similar, like almost similar icons, but with different names.
Like literally, even their stories are similar. Like even when I was looking, I got really deep into Sekhmet at one point, because I was really trying to figure out what happened culturally that turned the tables with them. And literally I literally went through Sekhmet's entire story. And like, even if we gave her a separate podcast, like a lot of the parts, like a bulk of our story would be exactly like Bastet.
Yes, exactly like that. And so I can say that maybe this podcast isn't only about Bastet, but also about segments. But I guess we'll see into that. Like exactly, I'm going to repeat exactly what you say, is that they have so much similar origin story, and how their story progress is also similar. So I guess the best bet is exactly what Alyssa said. People worship Sekhmet for a while, but then after a while that you're worshiping a ferocious animal, a ferocious mammal that is taught to be threatening and fear. After a while, people want to kind of mellow down a little bit and worship something less threatening and ruthless. So they decide to just switch to domestic cats. And of course, this is all speculations, but to me, that makes a lot of sense because civilization does progress and people's ideology does change over day. Oh, I mean, over time.
And I
Sorry.
mean, no, you're absolutely right. No, that's absolutely right. And I mean, like, and since we're on the topic of cats anyway, why don't we go ahead and get into and tell them why exactly? Because I mean, most people, I mean, I'm assuming that we have some cat lovers on here. I mean, drop a C in the chat if you are a cat lover. If you have a
Yes.
cat, you love cats, go ahead and drop a C for for respect for your cat. Like I said, I was terrorized by one when I was 4, so I'm not.
Oh.
I am not a cat person, but you know,
Okay. Actually, can I just finish up? Can I just finish up her worshiping, and then we'll move to like popular culture, and we can talk all about cats.
let's go ahead and keep going with her worship, and then we'll get into
Yeah.
why exactly cats. Because, like I said,
Yes.
people understand they love cats, but it just seems weird. The level that the Egyptians worship them on is bordering on like obsession. It may like
Well, yes,
wow.
a lot of it is, but I think it makes sense because once we get to like the popular culture, it will all make sense in a moment because there's an explanation for everything. And I like that. And so what happened here is that the worshiping of Bastet was known to last until like the Ptolemy dynasty, which was when Greeks took over the reign of Egypt, and this was when like things really like Hellenistic starts running through like Asia and Europe and the Mediterranean. People start mixing blood and start traveling and start tourist trapping, all the good stuff. So of course we know that her temples were destroyed, but there are some accounts, and specifically there is a Greek historian called, I'm going to try my best to pronounce this, Herodotus. He recorded the high scale of worshiping that Bastet received before her temples were destroyed. So in the Lower Egypt, again, I'm going to try my best to pronounce this word. It's called Babatis, I believe. Please correct me if you guys can. It's located in the Lower Egypt, near the Eastern Delta. This city,
Babastes, yeah.
Babastes, this city, Babastes, was considered Bastet's cult center. The entire city worshiped her and cats. Basically, the whole city was her cult. It was one of like the most richest, most luxurious city during that time. And they host some of like the largest festival dedicated only to Bastet. A lot of tourists. This is an ancient tourist trap, by the way, so don't go there, people. A lot of tourists visited this city to pay respect to Bastet, and actually, they would bring their dead cats there to be buried near her temple.
Yeah, they even had like a whole altar. Like there's a whole altar in the shape of Bastet that you can
Yes,
bury your cat.
yes. I mean, I don't know where they buried it, or they're going to pay to get it mummified, something like that. I think.
No. People actually were said to mummify the cats as well. Like if the owner died, you were one. That was the cat was definitely. I mean, I guess they did it to dogs too, but the cats were who you wanted to take with you in the
Yes.
afterlife.
Yes, basically, yeah. People will bring their dead cats there to like, let them bury there in the city of like the goddess of cat. That is like the big thing. And people would travel by boats to go into the city, and sometimes there'd be festivity. They'd be playing music, dancing, singing, drinking wine. Like people say that this is like the most wine were consumed at these festivals than the entire year. I don't know who's doing the bookkeeping, but it makes sense. So,
Oh yeah.
people love her. Her cult grew rapidly, like by the late period of Greco-Roman. She was one of the most popular goddess in Egypt. Like
Greco-Roman. The
literally
Greco-Roman era.
Greco-Roman. Okay, I can't speak today. Egyptians weren't like the only one who respected her. Her cult spread all the way to Europe. And thanks to Christianity, because Bastet actually has relation to Christianity, because thanks to Hellenism again, because of course when Christianity became like the most centered, like the most popular religion in Europe, and it start making its way down to the Middle East and some part of the Mediterranean. They start combining the culture. They start integrating as like a formal gesture, like a necessity alliance. But then eventually, the necessity turns into like this, like free golden ticket to like the Eastern and Western world. Her popularity spread like the smallpox or something. I'm sorry to use that.
We're just coming up with all the triggering puns today.
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that, but it makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's pretty accurate. Like it was a very big deal, especially for like you said, tourists that were visiting the city and all of the like it was a very big deal. It was a very serious thing, and even like Bastet, as she was worshipped, the amount of reach that she had is very interesting to me. And like I said, I don't even find it surprising that, like I said, even when Christianity kind of bulldozed through, temples got knocked over because I mean, and like I said, I personally I understand it, but like, you know, we lose a lot of valuable things. And like I said, it tells us so much
Yeah.
about a culture when they're not there or when they've changed. It's just a very interesting thing. So sad that that happened. But if you look at, like I said, I relate a lot of the Egyptian. If you notice, I started relating a lot of the Egyptian, especially during our pop culture hour. We'll talk about a lot of how Egyptian mythology kind of meshes with with biblical stories. And then if you look at biblical stories as well, you see that, you know, almost like, especially if you're reading like, and even if you're not Christian, I would give it a read. It's very interesting how you see that like most of the places, especially for like the first half of the Bible in the Old Testament, literally we are always constantly in Egypt. You never leave Egypt. At some point, someone somewhere will go back to Egypt. So I'm not even surprised that there's such an overlap there.
I request Alyssa to sing Flight into Egypt.
Oh my gosh, no. I don't even.
You should do it one day. We should have a podcast where you sing that song one day. Yeah. But I want to start off. I know this is your hour, and I'm going to give it to you in a moment. But I just really want to start off by saying this because I'm going to lead you into something right now. I want to start off with the topic of killing cats in ancient Egypt. It is
Yes,
a
perfect place to
forgivable
start.
crime. It is a crime that you will be put to death, and you need because
Wait. Because I'm really excited about this story too. And like I said,
yes, I was
this
going
is
to
the
lead you into
only
that story. Yeah, I was going to tell you to tell that story. Go ahead.
this is the only this is the only interesting like this I mean there's other interesting stories as well, but this is interesting because like I said, if you hear about Bastet's story, they're not cautionary tales. They're cautionary tales that actually they're not cautionary tales that someone makes up. These are things that happened in history. It's recorded. So it's very interesting. That's a new take on things. That should tell you how real and what a reach she had. But I before we get into that, because I feel like they won't understand, they'll definitely find the story kind of maybe amusing, or maybe we're just crazy, but
I'm
because
amused. I'm sorry. I'm amused.
oh, I was definitely amused, I laughed, but like before that I think we should explain.
We're horrible.
We
I'm
might.
sorry. If you guys find this story like terrible or not laughing worthy, we're sorry, but literally this just give us so much joy. Just the gist of it, just the idea of it, just give us so much joy.
I mean, it
And
speaks volumes. It's a very good lesson for people. We're such
yes,
sex nuts. This is really bad. We're such sex
so
nuts.
listen to this story, please.
Oh yes, and actually, fun. Oh my gosh, I shouldn't keep doing this, but fun fact: people actually called pharaohs that were like tyrants or horrible people, or they just murdered without relentlessly, or they were war pharaohs. They used to nickname them Sekhmet
Oh,
as a
now
as
I
paying
get
dues for it.
it. Now I get it. No wonder what. Okay, that's like an adjective. Okay, great.
I'm assuming King Tut was at one point called a segment, but you know that's neither here nor there. Either way, I feel like we should explain why house cats are so important before we get into our fun story for the
Okay,
day.
of course, house cats were very important. I think I'm going to bring this point up, and um, I will give it to you eventually. But I do have one point I need to make, that the relationship between cats and humans strengthened, really, because cats are like mice and rats hunter. Because you guys must need to know this, because it is very crucial. Because back then, people would collect, like, their harvest, their grains. They need to keep it in storage, and sometimes they would find like these rodents in there, and that's horrible
And for
because
those of you who don't understand why this is important, just adding this in really quickly. Harvest is important everywhere you go because of course that's your food. But in Egypt, you are living out in the desert.
Yes.
the time when it was the most fertile and you actually had grain and whatnot was when
Yes.
floods from the Nile come in, and probably still even currently today when the floods from the Nile are coming in. So it is very pertinent, that you keep your food stored, that it's clean, that
Yes.
it's okay. So having mice pop up in your daily bread is not a
No.
very
Yeah,
not a
you
very
need
happy
these
thing.
food. You need these food. And here's the thing about rodents. They carry diseases. So yes, I mean there's no like food safety police back then. There's like no there's like no assembly that checks their food quality grade back then. But
And before
you
somebody
know,
says it, there's no substitute either, because bread was
yes.
a staple in Egypt. I mean, it's a staple everywhere. It's like rice. Everyone
Yes.
eats it, but
You
that
need
it was
these
a
things.
staple.
It's like your food supply. This is what you live on. You literally risk getting all these disease if you have rodent in there. Like you lose like if you make money of it, you lose money. If you're saving it for yourself, you lose the food, and you can even lose your life because these things carry disease. It's a very big lose-lose situation. So what people begin to do is that they begin to use cats. They would put food out for the cats and have them stay in where they store these things. And if they find the rodents, boom, they have more food and the problem is solved. The cats stay there, and people have these cats in their home, and they're like the best helper ever. The alliance is formed now. Of Alyssa, are you going to speak about the snake?
Yes, that's I was just about to say.
Go ahead.
On top of on top of being the most useful creatures ever and being basically not as ferocious as a lion, still having enough attitude, being able to take out one of the greatest like one of the greatest problems and rodent problems like ever, being literally man's best friend. Sorry, my dog lovers, but at this point, the
Huh.
Egyptians' best friends were the cats. On top of doing that, they were also that snakes in Egypt are another huge deal. I mean, if you know them for one thing, I guess lions. I never really thought about it until we got into the Sekhmet story, but lions,
Yeah.
frogs, and snakes, especially cobras. In Egypt, if you saw a snake, if a snake was near you, it was tickets, it was curtains, you were done. Like,
Yes.
snakes are dangerous. They are lightning fast, amount and like potent amount of venom. It was just not a good thing. And especially like we said, there's not modern doctors. And even now that there are modern doctors, especially in Africa, where some of the deadliest snakes in the
Oh,
world live,
yes.
you could be dead in seconds. Even when we have the technology or we have things to help us, it is we're still suffering. So imagine in ancient Egypt. I mean, like I said, they had their own they had their own way of taking care of themselves. Pretty amazing doctors. If you
Yes.
and they actually are linked to Sekhmet too. We're not going to get into that today, but you should
Hallelujah.
that yeah, definitely look that up if you get a chance.
Pray
So
medicine. Pray medicine.
yeah, pretty much. Definitely look up that connection between medicine and Sekhmet if you get the chance. But either way, snakes were bad news. Cats were bold enough, sassy enough that they took
Yes.
on those snakes, and and on multiple occasions they won. So
Yes.
they would actually take out poisonous snakes. And like I said, and there are several animals that can do this. Honey badgers, weasels, very hard to domesticate though, especially badgers. They will die before they give an F. So
Oh yes, those things are tough. Even lions wouldn't mess with those things.
yeah, hyenas don't even mess with them, and hyenas are absolutely nuts.
Because this story of of cats attacking snakes and taking down serpents. Because you remember, Alyssa, you told me that the serpent was meant to be a what is it, a sign of what is a sign of it was the arch enemy. The serpent god Apep was like the arch enemy of Ra. He was destined to bring down the world in chaos. And so they have back then they would have this picture. It's like the world's oldest meme where they have a picture of Bastet literally cutting off the head of the god snake.
Basically, what we have depicted, because I didn't really explain it, what we have depicted is her cutting off the head of Apophis. Apophis is a god as well, but in Egypt, and I touched on him lightly in Isis and well, him, her. We get multiple titles with that, but it's usually a her. Apophis was considered the great god of chaos. And before you say it, no, not like Nun. Nun is a different type of chaos. He's like empty space and void. Apophis, He was one of those people in life that actually wanted to see the world burn.
Oh,
Yeah, he
dark.
literally, the reason why, and I mentioned this in the previous story. Yeah, it's very dark, darker than you know. It's about to get darker,
Oh
quite
my.
literally. Apophis every night and this is why Seth was Ra's favorite grandson,
Oh.
because he used to protect him against Apophis every day. The Ra's caravan would ride through the sky, and that's his Eye of Ra, his little baddies, his little squad, his crew, his fam, taking care of him, making sure he's okay. They are guarding him from the very snake that Bastet is beheading, called Apophis. Apophis was this gigantic FU snake who would basically, every time the sun was going down, every time you saw the sun going down, that was Apophis trying to eat the sun and literally drown the world in chaos for the fun of
Oh.
it. He actually almost succeeded. There is a story about Ra where he does disappear because Apophis actually succeeds in eating the sun. But
Oh.
it is the one thing. It's like the legendary stories in many different cultures where you have the superheroes trying to save the day. There's the one thing that they just can never let happen. The one thing you are not allowed to do. Sekhmet can run rampant and do genocide. Isis can cast spells. Seth can overthrow the king. But the one thing we are not allowed to do is let Apophis swallow the sun. That
Makes
is a
sense. I mean,
KO
we
for
kind of
everyone.
need it. We kind of need the sun, to be honest. But so yeah, it's a necessity. We need to do it.
Yeah.
I
So
like that. I do like that. The Egyptians were very creative,
oh yeah.
and yeah. Is that it? Because I really want to move on to this next one because it's really interesting as well. All of these are interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's pretty much it. So yeah, it carries over into their stories, and like I said, that's just what just to wrap it up. That is something that you can, like I said, you could tell a lot by their stories, and in their stories, that's that killing Apophis is a very big deal because in real life, the snakes truly were the enemy. Snakes were
Yes.
terrifying, even more so than lions. Lions big enough to run from. A snake, you can't outrun that. That's fast. But the cats were who protected you from that, protected you from diseases, made your harvest good. So we're kind of getting a good understanding to the point where, like, I'm not a cat person, but I'm even starting to like cats. I'm like, maybe I should get one. But
Yeah, sure. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
no.
But yeah. Yeah, so um and also of course Bastet was the goddess of protection. She protects you and your home. And I'm pretty sure you guys know the phrase that cats have 9 lives. And this is actually where it comes from. When there are stories of where if your house is burning, the house cat is the one that will come in and rescue the residents from the burning fire. They're like the first form of firefighters. They will appear to be dead, but Basset will bring them back to life. As, and that's where the popular saying of like cats have 9 lives. They can die, but they will be protected by the cat goddess, and Basset will help bring them back to life.
I had no idea about that. That is really cool.
Yes, like if they die like and I guess it has to be like an honorable way. They can't just because die of old age. It has to be like an honorable way, in a way like, oh, I saved this family from dying in the fire. I reward you with life again. This is like the 7th time. You have 2 more times, kid. So like that. Yeah. So which one do you want to talk about next?
Yeah, oh no, we also have to touch on the fact that cats were very fertile. So the fact that this
Yeah.
thing does all this great things and they can produce in such a large number, they also became, that's where she gets her term, the goddess of fertility, because cats were considered very fertile, and that
Yeah.
was actually considered to be to the point where women were given, it was not very uncommon to get marriage presents time at the end of the year. It was like the last 5 days of this specific time in Egypt was
Demon
considered
days.
bad luck. Yeah, it was considered bad luck day. They were called the demon
Demon
days.
days.
Yeah, they were considered 5 days of bad luck, and they were the worst days ever. Still haven't gotten to why exactly, weather wise, maybe that it was considered the worst day, but it was considered the worst day, and it was not uncommon to give people cat statues, cat relics, anything resembling Bastet in order for good luck. And like I said, cats were very fertile, so in you would also give it to a woman who was wanting to have children. Their goal
Yes.
in life was to have huge families, so giving her a cat that had a litter of children was considered a good sign that she would be fertile, that your family would grow in size. If your cat did not, it was considered a really, really bad thing, taken very seriously, and I'm probably assuming I mean, they can't kill the cat, but I'm assuming they probably got another cat and tried again. But
I think,
literally,
no, to be honest, I think they would replace the woman before they replace the cat, as bad as it sounds. I'm so sorry, but I think it's kind of like that.
yeah, for all the respect Egyptians have for their females, and like I said, all his posse and squad, the most powerful people here are the females. Like I said, I give Egypt credit for that, but yeah, I do
Yeah.
believe they'd probably
So,
replace the woman before the cat.
yeah,
Like
so
she's the problem. And we also have to talk about how on Demon Days, I just want to make sure we don't forget this. Cats. Okay, so everyone knows cats' eyes glow in the dark. And I know, Julie, I think you told me that this is also a Vietnamese thing, but I actually saw it in an Egyptian story. Almost all their history tells that cats' eyes glow in the dark, and when
a
they
lot
were
of
looking at
culture
it,
has that. A lot of culture has that. I have met a lot of people who know the same thing I did. They always I was always told as a kid that when you see a dog or a cat, and their eyes are glowing in the dark, it means that they are seeing spirits or demons, and that they're trying to ward away the demons and the spirits. It is good to have those animals so that they will protect you.
yes, yeah, pretty much, and that's exactly what the Egyptians believed as well. And on Demon Days, that was especially useful. So now that we understand how useful cats are,
Can I just say
uh,
something before we move on? I just really want to
yeah,
get this out there. It's kind of weird, but I want to get it out there. So, guys, on Demon's Day, just kind of imagine like Christmas, like on the few days of Christmas where your aunts and your uncles, maybe your grandparents are visiting, and instead of bringing you presents, they bring you a litter of kittens. Merry Christmas, guys, or Merry Demon Day, guys. And that would be how it works. That's all I have to say.
nah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, basically. Okay. So go ahead. Go ahead with yours.
Oh yeah, so now that we've given you an understanding of how important cats are, how revered, and then having them also be their goddess as well. Our fun story for today, Bastet's story
Yay!
of the day. So Bastet's story of the day is about a Roman soldier,
Oh
and
dear.
we can think of him as. Uh, I know we have a very diverse audience, so please do not take offense to this, but if any of us are living in America, we know that we often get stereotyped, and most of the time, sadly, it is not. It is true. We will go and visit other countries without learning the customs and the proper respectful way of being and existing in that country or visiting even. So,
Boo!
yes, not a very good thing. Yeah, telling someone that they're required to speak English in their own country is not a good move, guys. Not polite.
Boo! Boo! Get out of here!
Yeah, so we
If
can
you
think of
can't
this.
tell, I'm on sugar right now.
I can tell just a little bit, but I love the energy.
Yay! Continue.
So we're gonna think of this Roman soldier as that bad stereotype, and
Oh,
he validates this.
oh, this is gonna end so badly.
Yeah, no, he is he is he really messed up, guys. He botched his up on this. So
Yeah.
he, as a Roman soldier, being all big and bad, and if you guys didn't know, the Roman Empire was a very huge thing. You know, they've taken over most of pretty much everyone. They're all big and bad. Even in biblical times, they're considered like the big baddies. They think of them as Great Britain during their colonial age. No offense to my Brits. Pretty sure you don't take offense to that anyway, but you know, they were
Boo! Boo the Romans!
yeah, they were think of them as the Brits of the ancient world, you
If
know,
you guys
after
are
the Ottoman
Italian,
Empire.
I'm so sorry for all my Italian listeners.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they really claim them like that, but you know, maybe someone in the chat or we'll get someone on the podcast who can explain that relationship. But either way,
Okay.
the Romans were considered the Brits of the ancient world, and so you know, they've kind of, I guess he kind of had, maybe he had that kind of personality where you know we've already taken everything, we've conquered most of everything. I'm all big and bad, and I can just do whatever I want. That's not true, especially if you're traveling on your own and you're in someone else's house. You don't get to act any type of way. So this soldier, he comes in, and I guess in a fit. Sometimes it's in a fit of rage. Sometimes it was an accident. he actually manages to go to the city of Baptiste. What is it? What was it? Baptiste.
You pronounce it right. I don't know.
It's Babastis. That's what it is. Babastis. The
Babastis.
which for those
Look up these pronunciation next time. We really need to.
honestly, because they're getting harder each podcast. But
Yeah, I'm so sorry, but we're not very good pronouncer.
yeah, but in the city, basically in the city of Babastis, and like we've told you, this is the center of Basset's cult. And we've already explained how
this is bad. This is gonna turn out so bad.
yeah, so he goes to this center of her cult, the place where they literally have festivals for this woman, where cats are considered gods, and he murders a cat.
Oh my god.
He thinks it's a good idea to murder a cat, and he is subsequently chased, killed by an angry mob of Egyptians in that part of Egypt.
Oh, I heard this thing so still surprised.
Yeah. See, that's why learning about the places you travel is very important. Learning how to someone else's culture.
Literally, they were chasing him. They were chasing him with like spears. They were people were like on horses. People were like on feet. They're like literally like, I don't know if the civilians were chasing him, but I know the soldiers, they were relentless. They chased him so freaking far that literally when they got so mad that they stabbed him to death or something like that.
Yeah, like guys, it wasn't funny. Like I'm actually surprised and kind of impressed that they managed to pull together a mob so dang fast.
I mean, he was in the center of a city that worshiped cats. They were probably singing and dancing, and they saw him in the corner stabbing a cat. They were like, "Get him!"
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I mean, like I said, this is a historical story. It is not like a made up cautionary tale, but it is still a cautionary tale. Respect others' cultures. Learn about a place before you head over there, because it's not your home. It's not your stomping grounds. It's someone else's stomping grounds. And I know we have other laws, especially the US one, where it's like, oh, the US will come back and get me. Question is, can they get to you fast enough? That's always my question to people who like to bring that up. Can they get to you fast enough?
Wait, didn't you bring that up with me once?
I did. I think I did when we were talking about traveling and learning.
And you try to prove me wrong? Come on now. You know what? Okay, we're gonna forgive that. Okay, forget until I be alone with you. But any closing remarks?
Okay, so I'm just gonna put in this last pop culture for our pop culture hour. I think our biggest topic for pop culture hour today is going to be the Baba Sis festival, the festivals that they had in honor of Bastet. So if you guys remember earlier in this podcast, we mentioned that Bastet had a huge cult following, and that every year on New Year's they'd hold a huge festival for her. Okay, so this festival directly relates to feminism in the one of the best ways possible. So women were encouraged, like in most places where they weren't in charge. Roe v. versus Wade. Just little shade there. Where there was many attempts to control them, and they were encouraged. Is that the word we like to use? Encouraged to be modest, and of course, a model woman.
I mean, they were fixated on.
Yeah, they really want. Funny because all their goddesses, and like I said, you can learn a lot about a culture. Watch what people put on their TVs. Watch, it's not an exact representation, but if you're watching it, it can say a lot, especially if it's produced by those people. It can say a lot. The fact that their women were so free, so absolutely just bombastic. They knew they were feared and revered. It says a lot about what they thought and what they might think, what probably the women really wanted to be like, because a lot of the times, like I said, they were encouraged to be demure, to be faithful, to be a good model woman. And I mean, not a lot of the points that I found were pretty oppressive, but I found the one about kind of being reserved unfair, especially because in many cultures, men don't have to be reserved in tongue or in action, if you know what I mean.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Feminism.
Yes. So it once a year when they had Bastet's festival, it was actually considered a time for females to let loose, go wild, drink, have sex. They were not bound to that reserved mentality of a demure female. They were allowed to run wild. They had rattles that represented Bastet. She's often seen holding them. They would shake them. They literally shake what their mama gave them. They would have a blast. And it was considered a very freeing time. And it's kind of sad that you even had to, I mean, if you're thinking about it that way, you had to designate a time for a woman to be a free human being. But but at the same time, I'm glad that they at least got that. Most societies and cultures didn't even do that much, but they gave them a day to be as free and as wild and have as much fun as they wanted. And that was basically what Bastet's, and like I said, that's how Bastet kind of became as a cat. She became the kind of role model or the sign for femininity. She gave them the freedom that they needed.
Yes, yes, that's it. I would be up from dawn to whenever Rob decided to make his appearance. You can stay in for a day. That's fine.
Honestly.
Seriously. Like, it doesn't matter. Okay, so note, I don't really have any other things except that we do appreciate cat. I wouldn't want to have one as a pet, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate them. I do, because they are very good hunters. They're very stealth. They're very they're just very easy to get around. But I wouldn't want to live with one. I just don't want to live with one. So anything else, Alyssa?
No, just that I agree with you. Definitely have more respect for them now, though, than I did before. Like, I still wouldn't have one, but I have more respect. Don't be afraid to reach out to us. Let us know if you have some ideas, maybe from around the world that you'd like to hear.
Definitely. Love to hear anything about it. So until next time, mortals, goodbye.
Bye, mortals.